Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Micah and today I am going to be showing you my entire eyeshadow palette collection. This is something I've never done. I've always shown bits and pieces or like one drawer or something like that, but I've never shown the whole thing. So this is going to be a long video, so grab a snack because you're gonna need it. Cup of tea would be nice too. Because yeah, this is going to be a long one. And before we get to the actual palettes, there are a couple of announcements that I do want to make because I know you're going to ask me questions and people are going to leave comments on this. This is not a decluttering video. I'm not getting rid of anything in this. I like to separate those things out. So if you hear me say like, oh, I don't really enjoy this, or I'm over this, and you're like, why are you not getting rid of things? That's why. I'm just showing you what I have today. The second announcement that I want to make is that I will be having timestamps in the description box below so that you can find different parts of the video. I will be showing you a bit of my storage first and then show you each of the palettes by brand. That's how I'm going to be organizing this video. Thirdly, yes, I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. I have nearly 200 of them, which is quite a lot for one person. I'm very well aware. And some of these are also quite old. And I know makeup expires, but my philosophy when it comes to using makeup is it doesn't really have an expiration date, so I just use my senses. I feel, smell, look at these shadows, and if they still look, feel, and just go on really nicely, I will still be using things. And then last but not least, the final thing that I wanted to say is you're not going to see a whole lot of pan or anything like this in a lot of my palettes, even if they're very old. I use a very light hand when I use my makeup. And I'm very careful with my makeup. I really try to take good care of it as well, which is why none of it looks like it's been used a lot. Even though everything, apart from the things I recently hold, everything has been used. I rotate things out. I don't dig into the pans trying to hit pan or anything like that. I've always been very gentle with my makeup and I just try to keep it in a good condition. So now that I've gotten all of that out and this disclaimer, because I always feel these videos need them, let's just get to these eyeshadow palettes and show you what I have. So welcome to my eyeshadow palette collection. This is the main part of it, as you could say. Right now I keep everything, like my entire makeup collection is housed in a 4-drawer Malm drawer set from IKEA, and then I keep my palettes in the bottom drawer. So you're looking at the main event right now. I try to organize everything by size in this, or brand, whichever way fits best. So let's move to the other drawer that I have above this. And this is drawer number 2. This is mainly drugstore and like smaller palettes as well. I'm going to start with this and then we'll move all the way down to this. So welcome to my sleek palette collection. As you can see, I have quite a few and some of these are quite old. I started with sleek before I had anything else. And so some of these may have expired by now, but some of these also have really unique shades, which is why I sort of keep them around. So there you have it, all of my sleek palettes. My favorite is right here at the top, this blue and like green shade. This is one of my favorite drugstore palettes. Not sure you can still get it. It's called the Calm Before the Storm palette. Just below that we have the Garden of Eden palette, which has neutrals, and then like almost a full row of greens, which are really pretty as well. This is the Enchanted Forest, which is a really pretty cool toned palette. Then one of my favorites by Sleek is this one, and this is the Sunset palette. Way before Morphe, way before everybody else, Sleek did a warm tone palette with oranges and a pop of blue. Then over here we have the On the Horizon palette, and this has like a really nice navy and then some greens and some oranges. This is a really nice sort of sunset eye kind of palette. And right here at the bottom, this was limited edition as well. This is the Lagoon palette, I believe. I think I won this in a giveaway and I'm keeping it around for that bright coral right there. This was limited edition as well. It was one of the first sleek palettes I bought. It still works really well actually. Then this is the Acid palette. This neon green is one that I definitely did wear from time to time. Again, it's quite powdery, but you can build it up. This is the Showstoppers palette. This is one that I won in a giveaway. Then over here we have the Nordic Skies palette. This has some really pretty soft pastel shades. And then this is one of the first neutrals, and this is All Night Long. This you can still get. It's one of the later palettes they released. I mainly bought it because of this coppery shade here. This will probably still work best. Yeah, look at that. That's a really nice copper. And then down here we have an I Lust palette, I believe this is called. I especially bought this because it has that green. Look at that. That's really, really nice and shiny. This right here at the bottom is Au Naturel, and that was my go-to palette before I owned any of my Urban Decay Naked ones. This shade right here. This is called Taupe. It's not a taupe. And despite this being quite old, again, this is one of my oldest sleek palettes, you guys. Look at that. Isn't that the prettiest champagne you've ever seen in your life? This is the Oh So Special, which I think I got around the same time. I may have bought these together, actually. And I mainly like this and keep this around because of these pinky shades here. This is the Ultra Mattes version 2. I mainly bought it because it had a matte forest green, because that was something that at the time I felt I lacked. And again, that has pretty nice pigmentation as well. Vintage Romance then, which is a really nice, if you want an eyeshadow palette that can do the right look for like a 1920s or 1930s inspired party, this is it. Like, these are the shades you need for that. This is like a taupey bronzy gold shade. That is my favorite one in the palette. And then the final one right here at the top is the Storm palette. This shade right here, which is like a steely blue, you could say. Really nice grungy shade. Like, look at that. And this palette is nearly a decade old. Next round of palettes. This is my luxury selection. These are my 4 Chanel quads. My most recent one is actually this one. This is called Road Movie, and it's got teals. That's the reason why I bought this palette, because it's got those 2 teals. Not sure if you can see that. There we go. Those are the 2 teals. These are really nice. And it made me rediscover my love for teal eyeshadow. This is called Tissé Dimension. My French is not the best. And then the reason I got this is because of this like silvery shade right here. That is a stunning shadow. It's a really interesting shade because it's silver, but it has a hint of green. This is called Tissé Fantasie, and this has to be my least favorite here. I do enjoy the green that's in here. So there you have the green. And then this is Candeur et Expérience from a fall collection. This was one of the first matte palettes they did. Moving on to Dior. I think the first one I bought is this one. I still keep this around because of this shade right here. This is like a really nice salmony pink. And again, this is quite a big dent in it actually. I believe this was a limited edition collection. And this is what that shade looked like. I remember getting the purple and the blue ones that I have here. Let me switch these around for a minute. I think I got these around the same time. I mainly keep this around for that dark plum shade here. That's that dark plum. And then also, again, in this blue palette, I've got a couple of favorites. And I actually like this the best. It's a bit cool toned. You can do a smoky eye with it. You don't have to. This, especially, of course, for that burgundy. This is part of a like limited edition for fall. This little Dior trio. And I just keep, this is like my party trick. If I have people over and they're like, well, do you have a special makeup product? I show them this. Because this, you slide it open, the mirror pops up. It's a gimmick, I know. I mainly bought it because of that like shade right there. So let me swatch that for you. There you have it. That's a stunning shade. And then we have 2 more luxury eyeshadow palettes, and these are both by Charlotte Tilbury. I have the Vintage Vamp and the Dolce Vita. The Vintage Vamp has to be my favorite. That's this one right here. And then the Dolce Vita I did get a little bit earlier, so that looks a lot more used. I love pulling these in for a really simple look around the holidays. These, especially this color scheme, it's just holiday season for me. Next up is Makeup Revolution. So this first palette right here is quite shiny, so I hope I'm not blinding you, but this is the Flawless 4. This is like the more affordable version of Modern Renaissance, you could say. You get a couple of like berries and reds and even like more plums in here. With this, what I appreciate is that there's a full row of shimmers. at the bottom and at the top, and then 2 full row of mattes. I have both Zoeva palettes. This is the original, and then the super shiny one in the back is the Extra Spice. So this is the original Zoeva palette, and this palette is probably one of the best Makeup Revolution has ever done in terms of quality. So the quality of these shadows is just, it's really, really good. You get a couple of nice like shimmery colors here. You've got some warm tones, you've got some cool tones. Like, these are really, really pretty. This silver shade, everybody talks about that, but look at that, it's so pretty. And then I have a couple of these clear lidded palettes by Makeup Revolution. This is the Revolution Pro Trends Mischief Maker palette. And I had another one of these, and that I decluttered because every single shade in that was like the same. With this, I still feel that some of the shades pull very similarly on the eye, but I kept this around because it's sort of like that grungy rainbow feel. The Subculture dupe, this is the Makeup Revolution Reloaded Iconic Division. This is a nice palette. I don't think it's a spot-on dupe. This is a lot more gray toned than the original Subculture palettes. And then these 2 palettes right here were limited edition. They did a Zodiac collection last year, and they came out with 4 different palettes. I don't have the Earth and Fire, but I do have Air and Water. Air is this is the Air Sign palette, and it has a couple of blues in there. And then this is the Water Sign palette. And I believe this is the one that goes with my own Zodiac, and this is also the one I prefer. These are all shimmer palettes, and while this has a lot of mattes, this has a lot of mattes, these 2 I feel offer something truly, truly unique. And then of course, Makeup Revolution chocolate bars. I Heart Revolution, I Heart Makeup, whatever the brand is called nowadays, puts these out. I already mentioned that these like white palettes, this Lemon Drizzle and Macaroons palette, I bought almost a year ago now, and I still haven't really played around with these. These aren't my favorite. And not because of the quality, I do have to say that. The quality of these is really nice. I bought this because I don't own the Colourpop Yes Please, and I thought that this could give me something similar. The Macaroons one is definitely the one that appeals to me the most because it has more cool tones, and that's what I prefer. And I like blues and greens, like that's my jam. These warm tones with golds, I don't really like. Now the main reason why I haven't been interested in these is that those bright pops of blue and red and yellow, that's what catches your eye. But then when you look more closely at these palettes, like 50 to 75% of every single palette is browns. So let's talk about the ones that I do like, which is the ones that I've now opened up for you. This is the Chocolate Mint, or Mint Chocolate palette, I should say. Violet Chocolate, Chip Chalk, I don't know. The mini version of that, let's just put it that way. This is the Nude Rose Gold Mini. This is the Naked Underneath, which had that gaudy heart on it. And this is the Chocolate Vice. So this cubby is the remainder of my drugstore eyeshadow palettes. So let's just start with these super miscellaneous high-end palettes that happen to live in here. I have 2 NARS duos. This is Cordura, and this is Isolde. And then an OG, this is Makeup Designory. These are very well loved. This taupe shade, this still feels so creamy. Other drugstore palettes that I have a Kiko Milano Color Fever Quad. This is a really nice cranberry palette, actually. These are my 2 favorite shades, so let me swatch those. Those are those 2. And then this, the Body Shop palette. This was limited edition for Christmas. And this rose gold shade is, and also this like grayish purple. I really like these 2 shades. Like, those are really pretty. And then last but not least, a CoverGirl and Max Factor palette. These are, of course, sister brands owned by the same company. This is the True Naked Peach Punch palette by CoverGirl. This is really nice. Both of these actually have really, really great quality. This was sent to me in a swap. This I bought myself. This is a really nice basic neutral cool tone palette. A brand that I think you can get pretty much everywhere, and I believe both of these palettes are still available, is MUA. I first saw this when I was in London one time, and I picked up this, the Elysium palette, and this is a dupe for Naked 3. And this was just a fun one that I wanted to try. This is the Fire Vixen. Now, you know, I don't really like warm tones, but this has like a matte red and this orange shade. Ooh, that's very powdery. But these go on really, really well onto the eye. Like, look at that pigmentation. Speaking of really good eyeshadow at the drugstore, Milani, really, really great stuff. This is one of the first ones I tried. This is Earthy Elements. And while good, these are much better. And then I have two of these square palettes. It reminds me a lot of the Stila palettes that came out a few years ago. This is the Soft and Sultry and the Most Loved Mattes. Really great quality. I'm not a matte lover, but these are really, really stunning mattes. And this is just, it's not as cool toned as a lot of people make you believe it if you love cool toned shadows. These are not that cool toned, but still really, really great neutral palettes. And then we have some NYX in here as well. I have the Ultimate Brights palette, which it's pretty. It's just, it really needs a white base to really, really work very well. And that's not always a step I want to do. By now I have better bright palettes, but it's good to keep a drugstore option, I think. So that's why this is living here. Perfect Filter Olive You palette is actually a much better alternative to the subculture if you want to go for something more affordable than the Makeup Revolution straight up dupe, I think. Then last but not least, this little Full Throttle quad in Stunner. And I bought this, of course, because of the teal. I actually think this very much reminds me of one of the quads that I have by Chanel. I mainly bought it because of these two shimmers. Ooh, look at that. Oh, so pretty. Yeah. And then the two brands that you may have expected that were in here most is Essence and Catrice, of course, because I try out a lot of their stuff. On top is the My Must-Haves palette, and this has now been discontinued, but you could put this together yourself. This, oh, look at that. Look at that. These work so nicely. Look at that. This is currently being discontinued as we speak. This is not going to be part of Essence's line anymore, and I'm very sad because this is one of the best things they've done. This is the Beautiful eyeshadow palette. It has 9 shades. It's very neutral, but it does have everything that you could possibly want when it comes to a neutral palette. And this was limited edition. Last year, this is the Wanted Sunset Dreamers eyeshadow palette. And it's a dupe for the Naked Heat. And then these are also being discontinued. These were released just last winter and they're already getting rid of them. This is the Hello New York. So these are the two palettes right here. These are pretty okay. They're not the best eyeshadow quality I've ever tried, by no means. Essence never is. But these are really nice. Like, I like this one and this one. And this had some really nice, like, duochrome shades. And, oh, look at that. Oh, so pretty. So, and last but not least, Catrice. Let's just start with something that's super old. You can no longer get this. They used to do these quads, and this is called Yellow Submarine. Like the Beatles song, yeah. This was new for winter. I think they still have these. This is the Exotic Traveler palette. They did a bunch of these, and look at how thin that is. And I bought this one over any of the others because it seemed to have some more interesting shades. I have a couple of these palettes. If you get just one of these, make it the Modern Matte. They keep doing this, and this, in terms of a drugstore matte palette, this is definitely not too shabby, but these tend to be quite powdery, and they can blend away quite easily. Alright, so then we have 2 more Catrice palettes left, and these are some of their more recent ones. This was released last winter, and this was released just now for the summertime. This is the Superbia Volume 2 Frosted Taupe. This is a nice cool tone palette, and in here we have the Crystallized Rose Quartz palette. And especially this one, I was so surprised by when I tried it. Let me show you a swatch here. Look at that. And from this, I'll show you the purple. This is really nice too, but I do feel that this is a very similar color story to the Hello New York palette by Essence, and I felt that that had slightly better quality. And we've moved to the bottom drawer, so now we're getting to the big part that I think that everybody truly wants to see. This is the Kat Von D stuff I have. I know that a lot of people don't like Kat Von D anymore. I bought these before any of the drama happened. I put my money into these things. I still enjoy these because they are really good quality. So while I'm not currently buying anything from the brand, I am sort of enjoying the things that I do have by them, so if that makes sense. So this is the Monarch. This is the shade in Light Eye. Next up is Urban Decay, and Urban Decay has to be one of my favorite brands for eyeshadow. I love their formula in general, and it's the brand I have the most by. Naked One is what, of course, got everybody started when it came to eyeshadow palettes. If this palette hadn't come out, I don't think we would have had these kind of videos on YouTube right now. Kid you not. This is not my favorite Naked palette by any means. It's got bronzes, and those are my favorite. But when it comes to this palette, I definitely sort of like these shades right here. The Naked, of course, you can no longer get. It was replaced by the Naked Reloaded. And I do have to say I like this. This is, in my eyes, better for my tastes than the Naked One. This shade is my favorite. It's a bit flaky, but hey, what's an Urban Decay eyeshadow palette without a bit of a flaky mess? This is my Naked 2. This is still one of my most used eyeshadow palettes till this day. I reach for this a whole lot, and especially, let me see if I can show you that. Again, these shades right here, YDK, Verve, Pistol, Suspect, Snakebite. Those are some of my favorite shades. I know you know what these look like, but if the Naked 2 is my most used, then the Naked 3 is definitely one of my favorites as well. For a long time, this has been my favorite Naked palette, and it still is till this day. Then we had the Naked Smoky, and this by far has to be one of my least favorite Naked palettes. I get the least use out of it, despite the gorgeous packaging. The only thing I do with it is a smoky eye with these two grays over here, Dagger and Slanted. Naked Heat, as far as warm tones go, if I had to keep just like one or two warm tones, this would definitely be one of them. I know it's not very versatile. You can't do a whole lot of like different things with it. For their more recent releases, the Naked Cherry has to be my favorite. This, I feel, complements the Naked 3 very well. This is like the Naked Heat, a little bit samey. It doesn't have a lot of versatility. You do get a couple of peaches, which I enjoy pairing with some of these berry shades. Especially this Young Love shade is one that I enjoy. So there we have that shade right there. But if you thought that that was it when it came to Urban Decay, that's not true. I definitely have a lot more here. The Urban Decay Backtalk palette, which was a palette not a lot of people liked. Let me take out the mirror. This is a palette that, again, I feel works really well together with Naked 3 and the Naked Cherry. I feel that you get the most versatility with this palette if you pull the cheek products into an eye look. Limited edition palette that I own is the After Dark palette. This is very smudgy, so let me just open it up. This palette is really stunning. I passed up on Electric, which this is the buddy of. This is a lot more my vibe. The Electric had a lot of, it had 3 blues it seemed, and this does have Fringe, which is this shade here, which was also in the Electric palette, and that was the only shade in the Electric palette that appealed to me personally, which is why I didn't get this, but this has warm tones at the top and cooler tones at the bottom. Born to Run, I think everyone's current favorite eyeshadow palette by Urban Decay, and I have to say, I fully agree with them. It's very much Vice palette inspired, in my opinion. Who remembers this one? This is the Urban Decay Deluxe Shadow Box. That's what it's called. I bought this because of Fishnet, I can tell you. Graffiti is also another shade in here that I keep it around for. But when I got this, I definitely used the 3 bottom shades the most because I was a bit scared of the other ones. And then a palette that I think you can no longer get. I think this was discontinued. This is the Naked Ultimate Basics. This is all matte, which is why I held off buying this for a very very long time. This is really, really good quality. And if, as far as mattes go, this and the Kat Von D, you know, I can pretty much, you know, do anything I'd like. So the next 4 palettes are all limited edition palettes. I think most of them are Christmas releases. This is the Heavy Metals that came out not too long ago. Oh, this is what that palette looks like. It's got jewel tones on this side, neutrals on that side. It's an all shimmer palette, and it's the reason why I don't own the Too Faced Chocolate Gold. This is the 15th anniversary palette. I really like Omen. I like Deep End. I like Ace. And I like Evidence, which is why I keep it around. So I mainly keep it around for these 4 shades here. This is all shimmer again. That's something that Urban Decay used to do. Look at that. Oh, so pretty. And these, like, you know, they still go on really, really well. Next up is the Urban Decay Full Spectrum. This was a palette not a lot of people liked. I did. Unpopular opinion. This is a rainbow palette. It was the first rainbow palette I bought. Look at that. It's stunning. It has a really nice gradient. I like that. It has different textures, a few mattes, mostly shimmers, I do have to say. And it goes from like light to dark, and I appreciate that. And then I have this bulky guy. This is the Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass eyeshadow palette. And everybody knows what this looks like by now. It pops up, it has a mirror, and then this comes out, and and you have a little butterfly there. So what the palette looks like, each column is a character in the movie. This one here, Bandersnatch, it's a teal. You know, I love that. And I mainly bought this because of this shade. This is Time, which is like a blackened, bluish, like interesting shimmer. Dream On is really nice as well. Like, I don't like really dark shades, but in this palette, it's a bit more of a topper, but it's really pretty. Da 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 da! Last bit of Urban Decay, my Vice palette little family here that I have. Vice 1, Vice 2, Vice 3, Vice 4. This is perhaps the Vice palette that is the most confusing in terms of its layout. It doesn't have a lot of cohesive, like, it doesn't really have a color story. It has one of the best golds on the planet though. This is called Blitz. Do I need to say more? Okay. This is what the Vice 2 looks like. This has a stunning silver. This is Shell Shock. Whoops. That's a really stunning shade. And it has these 2 purples. This is Voodoo. And that's Betrayal. Any brand that says that purples are hard to make only needs to look at this palette and figure out what the formula is of these 2, because those are really, really pretty. And then we got the Vice 3, and the Vice 3 was one, when I looked at this, it's like Miami Vice inspired packaging. What this palette has, where the Vice 1 and 2 don't have a color story, while it's not one cohesive color story, you do get neutrals, a green-blue look, a like rusty purpley look, you get a berry look, and you get a cool tone look. And then last but not least, the Vice 4. This has, again, that sort of like neutral row here, but this works a bit more like that. So where the Vice is columns, this is rows. Works really well. Flame is perhaps one of the standout shades in this palette. For me, I really like Arctic in here. Welcome to my Zoeva eyeshadow palette collection. This is called The Spice of Life. This shade right here is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, that looks a bit flaky actually. Needs a bit of building up, but it's a really, really gorgeous shade. I also have the Cocoa Blend. This is of course the infamous one. This is what made them famous. I think everybody loves this cranberry shade here. That is definitely one of the best shades in this palette. And that's what that looks like. It's really, really stunning. I also own the very warm toned Caramel Melange. This is super pretty as well. Especially this one right here. This is called Liquid Center. It's got 6 mattes, which the other ones seem to have more shimmers, but this shade, oh, this is like the inside of a a caramel, like candy bonbon type of thing. And then another one that I really like is the Blanc Fusion. I really like the packaging of this, and I like that this has a full row of mattes and then a full row of shimmers. These are stunning neutrals, but this one especially here, Late Bloomer, this is also a gorgeous like bronzy golden tone. We have the On Taupe, which is another one of my favorites. This is a bit muddy if you're not very fair, and it's very samey. It doesn't have a whole lot of variety, not a whole lot of versatility, but these two shades, remember what I said about duochromes? These are both really, really pretty shades, especially that first one right there. It's like a really nice bright shade. And this is a bit more muted, but it has this like pink flash. The Opulence palette has to be one of my least favorite Zoeva palettes. This is a bit of a dud, and I talked about decluttering this, which I'm still on the fence about. Some people were saying that this blue works best wet, which I haven't tried yet, so I have to. The Zoeva matte palette then, they do some really nice mattes too. Yes, I like those duochromes that they do in some of their palettes, but this, neutrals, warms, some cooler tones. It has a very nice sort of gradient of color in here. I also have the Melody. This is one of the newest ones that I bought. And talking about duochromes, like these 5 are all really, really pretty duochromes. Look at that. And then we have another new one. This is the Heritage palette. This has fewer duochromes, but it has a couple of nice berry shades in here. And this purple, oh my. Let me swatch these two. These are really nice. Like, those are my 2 favorite shades in the entire palette. Let me build this up a bit more. And then we have another palette that I talked about decluttering, but I haven't yet because I don't know why. Like, I don't want to get rid of just the one thing, you know? A bit of a completionist, as you know. This is the Rose Golden. This is also, like the On Taupe, very sort of samey, not a whole lot of versatility. And then I still have these 3 left. These are also a little bit newer to me. This is the Premiere Collection. And this has, like, it has this, like, vintage, like, cinema kind of feel to it in the packaging. And I think that this color story fits that theme very nicely. It has like a couple of these like mauve-y berry shades, but like more neutral and more muted. But this is a really, look at that. Oh my. I also have the IC palette. This is very reflective packaging. It's like a pink and gold. And this looks, this is actually quite cool toned. It's a really nice cool toned one. This doesn't look red on the eye. Let me swatch that for you. It pulls a bit more like pink. It has that pink flash to it. This is stunning too. It's a nice duochrome as well. And then the final one, this is the Eclectic Eyes palette. This is also one of my favorites. I do feel that the colors in the packaging are more vibrant than in the palette, which is a bit iffy, I have to say. But this and this are 2 really stunning shades. Next brand is Lorac. I have the 1, 2, and 3 Pro. That's it. This is the Lorac Pro 1. And this is a nice warm tone neutral palette. Lorac has all matte, all shimmer, which I really appreciate. Especially Pewter and Garnet are my 2 favorites in here. These are very soft, and this was definitely a formula when I first started working with it. I really had to get used to it. The Pro 2 was actually the first one that I bought. I picked this over the 1 at the time because this is just a little bit more up my alley. I really like Chrome, that has a big dip in it actually, and I like Jade on the lower lash line, and Nectar is a great like transitioning shade. So there you have those two. And then my favorite Lorac palette is the Lorac Pro 3. This is such a stunning palette. Rose Bronze has a really big dip in it, like this one, a Medallion and Light Pewter. I can use this entire palette. Terracotta and Clay are two really, really great matte transition / crease shades, which was, until I tried this, I really had a hard time using a lot of shades, like finding a neutral palette in which I could use every single shade, and this one works for me from left to right. These are the Balm palettes, Nude tube, so let's just start there. One of my favorite shades in here is Standoffish, and I also really like Sexy in here. I love doing like a burgundy smoky eye with this palette, those are those two shades. Oh, that's a really terrible swatch. Then I keep saying this, and I'm going to say it again. If the Naked 3 by Urban Decay is too light for you or too pink, try this. This is rosy tones for a darker skin tone. Just saying. And this is, again, you know, one of those things where I feel like I should use that more often. It goes for most of the Balm palettes, actually, but especially for the Nude Beach. This is warm tones in a style that I actually quite like. Then next up we have the Meet Matte family. The Meet Matte Nude was the first one I got. This comes with a whopping 25 grams of product. That's a lot of eyeshadow. This is what it looks like. It's got some like warm tones here, and then it's got cool tones like this. So it has a mixture of both. The Meet Matrimony then is more warm toned overall. Apart from the pink perhaps, and maybe this one, but everything else is quite warm toned, which is why I don't like it. But this shade right here is like a perfect like setting your base with kind of shades. This is the Meet Matador. Now this is my color story. The quality between these three differs quite a bit. I think quality-wise, the original Meet Matte Nude has to be my favorite. The Matador has the color story that I love. In terms of warm tones, I like mustardy browns, and it's got like a lighter and a darker version of that. It's got this like really deep dark green, which funnily enough, on me, it actually pulls a bit more green. And then it has that blue. So let me just swatch this. And these feel a little bit chalky, I do have to say. Ooh. Spilling eyeshadow everywhere, but that's what those look like. Next up are my Anastasia palettes. As you can see, I have 7 of them. I don't have the Alyssa Edwards or the Jackie Aina ones because those didn't interest me. Let's just be short and sweet about that. Of course, everybody knows Modern Renaissance, so I'm quickly going to show you what mine looks like. It's barely used. This is not my favorite palette like it has been everyone else's. I just like the berries and the reds in here. Now, what was much more up my alley is a soft glam in terms of neutrals. I was very surprised with how much I liked this. I thought it was going to be too dark and too sultry on me, but because I think it has a bit more of like that pinky undertone to some of the shades, I think it works really well for me. I really like Dusty Rose in here. I actually have this as a liquid lipstick by them, and that's also one of my favorite liquid lipsticks, actually. Then the Subculture, which has to be one of my favorites, if not the favorite Anastasia palette in my opinion. I know, unpopular opinion, but this is just a color story that works really, really well for me. The only shade I find difficult to work with in here is Axis, but it is one of my favorite shades, and it's a teal, and you know how I feel about teals. And then the Norvina. So I like this palette a lot. Rove Mattes, Rove Shimmers, Rose Gold, Soul, and Volatile. Those are my favorites in here. Look at that. I don't know about you, but I think that's stunning. The Prism, however, you can still find on the official Anastasia website. That's where I got mine because I only got this last spring. I mainly bought it because of Throne, so let me swatch that. But as but as I was using this palette, I really found out that I really like Dimension as well. And this is like a really nice icy lilac-y shade. Like, those are my 2 favorite shades in here. And then we have the Sultry, which is again in my top 3. This is a bit more cool toned. I really like Cyborg in here. And I really like Cinder, as well as Teak, and like some of these other shimmers that are in here, but these are my two favorites in here. Nice neutral undertone, or neutral tone palette. I just wish that this was a bit more cool toned. And then my last Anastasia purchase, which is the Riviera, with all of those fun, bright pops. Seaside is really nice, and I really like Cabana, and of course Bahamas. Like, these are so nice. Like, I really like that. Time for my Too Faced family. I have 7 of those. There is one missing, of course, which is the chocolate gold. I already mentioned that I don't have that because I have the Heavy Metals palette by Urban Decay, which is also all shimmer. Let's just start at the start, like at the beginning. This was not the beginning of my Too Faced journey. I just did a 3 looks 1 palette with this and explained, I think, very well why this doesn't really work for me. It has 2 lid shades, and that's it. I like the semi-sweet a lot more. This has sadly been discontinued. This is cool tones here, warm tones over here. It has peanut butter, and this just has a lot more shades that work for me personally. And then the chocolate bonbons, which is one of my favorite cool toned palettes. Again, I can no longer find this in stores. I think it has been discontinued. This is such a stunning palette. I like these mattes in here. I really like Sprinkles as an inner corner highlight. Let me swatch that for you. And then Cafe au Lait is a really nice all over the lid shade. And I like Earl Grey for like a bit of a smoky eye, actually. So that's what those shades look like. The Sweet Peach palette. Everybody loves Luscious. I love that shade too, but actually Peaches and Cream and Georgia, these 2 mattes down here, I really like. And there is a bit of an issue with this palette for me, and that is that, so that's what those shades looks like. There is a bit of an issue with this palette for me because I'm drawn to this half of the palette, but not necessarily this half, save for these 2 matte browns perhaps. And then the white chocolate bar. If there was one palette by Too Faced that nobody liked, it was this one. This is a palette that a lot of people didn't like because it's so light. It's got a couple of peaches that I like, but let's just get straight to it. Sugared Raisin and also Indulge. These 2 shades. You do need these with it. You need to apply these with a glitter glue to really make them work. That minty or like greeny shade and the lavender shade are both really stunning too. And then last year's release, the Gingerbread Spice. I, of course, like everybody else, really went in hard for Hot Toddy, so let me swatch that for you. That is a really stunning shade right there. But I actually weirdly also liked Spiced Rum and Spice of Life. Like, these 2 shades are really nice too. And last but not least, the Too Faced Peachy Mattes. This is stunning. I love this shade here, Just Peachy. That is one of my favorites actually in the entire palette. In terms of quality and dimension and all that, like, I'm not a big fan of wearing an all matte look, but with this palette I can pull it off. So now we're on to the left half of the drawer, and now we get into more miscellaneous stuff. We have Melt, and this is actually not 1 stack, it's 2. I have this She's in Parties stack, especially this shade right here, which is called She's in Parties, is a stunning eyeshadow right there. I also have the Rust stack, and these are matte browns, you could say. This shade is Rubbish, and is my favorite shade in this entire quintet. We'll just move these to the side. I had 2 more Urban Decay palettes. Naked Basics 1, Naked Basics 2. Basics 2 is my favorite. Some of these have dents in them. With the Naked Basics 2, I felt I could do a complete look. This is like a matte everyday palette. I sometimes pull this in if I need a matte shade for something. And this I felt there isn't enough. It's like very light and then it's really dark. Shall we just start talking about this guy right here in the middle? One of the reasons why I know I don't need any more all shimmer palettes is because of this. If you saw my declutter at the start of the year, I was going to get rid of this. I just couldn't do it to myself with how expensive this Viseart Sultry Muse palette is to get rid of it. This shade here is another favorite rose gold shade for me. That, and this one too. This coppery, bronzy. Oh, look at that. Like, as far as shimmers go, this is one of the best formulas ever. But because it's all shimmer, I don't reach for it. I don't own any other Stila palette apart from this. This very much looks like those Milani palettes I showed you earlier. This shade here, I really like. I believe it's called Pigali, or maybe it's that one. I don't remember. But that one I really like. It's got Kitten, which is right here. But my favorite shade has to be this gray at the bottom. Those are really nice. Anastasia, we weren't done with that just yet either. This is the World Traveler Shadow Couture. This is really nice. It's got Pink Champagne, it's got Fudge, it's got Spoiled. But Morocco and Soft Peach are actually my two favorite shades in this palette. Dose of Colors, 5-pan matte palettes, the Marvelous Mauves, and the Blushing Berries. I really like these little palettes. They have a very soft, powdery formula, but this, especially this Marvelous Mauves, perfect. This is perfection. These shades should have been in the Backtalk palette. A brand I hadn't tried much from until very recently is Jeffree Star Cosmetics. I first got the Blue Blood, which looks like this. It's really bulky packaging, I'm not gonna lie. It's not the easiest to use or store because of that, which, you know, with Jeffree Star, that is a bit of a thing. I really like this Ocean Ice shade, as well as this minty shade, Minty. I really like that. And then we have the Jawbreaker and the Mini Breaker. So these two I bought together because I feel that you need both in order to make a complete palette. But what I feel this one is missing is that matte purple in the middle. Just not gonna lie. This doesn't have a lot of depth or dimension to it. This bubblegum or cotton candy shade, that one. When I swatched this in store, I was like, yup, I need to get you. The Dream Street by Colourpop, I think everybody knows what this looks like. But I went with this palette out of everything that they offer because I only got it last winter. And I definitely think that this is one of their more unique color stories. I feel that, as with Makeup Revolution, Colourpop does a lot of palettes, and not all of them are super duper special. I like this shade here, Mermaid Boy, and I also really like this, Kaleidoscope. Those are my two favorite shades in this entire palette. The Fame palette by Colourpop I got around the same time as the other one because I wanted to try their palettes, as I mentioned. And this is suffering from too many shades that pull identical on the lid. It's nice and cool toned. It's very neutral. Really, really good if you're looking for a cool tone neutral palette, but it's not up to my taste. Nabla then, I first got the Soul Blooming, and I've kept the outer sleeve because I just really like that effect. This is such a stunning spring palette, and I know that not a lot of people like this, but again, this pool's quite light, so if you're fair-skinned, it probably works best. I like Garden Gate, and some of these shimmers definitely need to be built up, I have to say. Like, you do need to layer them, foil them, the whole 9 yards. Same goes for Philosophy. This has a bit better pigmentation, actually. But where it's at is the mattes. You guys, like these Nabla mattes. Last but not least, the Secret palette. And this I bought mainly because of those teals and purples. But this is Berries. This is Warm Tone Brows. So for me, this could have been a 5-pan palette and I would have been very happy. But let me swatch these for you because these are gorgeous. That's them right there. Let's just start with this. This is my Jaclyn Hill Vault. These are the only Morphe shadows I own. My least favorite is the first one right here. This is the warm toned one. This is Ring the Alarm. When we have Bling Boss, and this is the All Purple palette, and oh, this is so stunning. Especially Ballsy here, I really like. And I also, very strange, but I like Berry Treasure too. Like, this is such a stunning dark shade. Like, look at this. Ah, this is so, so pretty. I really liked Armed and Gorgeous. Like, if we have to go warm toned, let me please do something like this. Now I do have to say that this shade here was a little bit patchy, like in the swatch as well. It doesn't build very well in the crease, but you can make it work. You just have to be patient. And this shade here, Classified. Oh, I don't like golds, but this, it's that gold with a green shift to it. And then last but not least, the Dark Magic Diversion. Are you guys ready for a stunning taupe? I love taupe. Taupe and teal, those are my two favorites. And I like Potion as well. Oh, and Busted. Oh, can I just like swatch the entire palette for you? Because, oh my, like, look at that. And now we get also to fun bright palettes, because I do like brights. This is the pure My Little Pony, the movie palette. This little palette here was such a great way when I wanted to start with bright and more colorful eyeshadows. And then one of my most recent purchases, the Slush palette by September Rose Cosmetics. This is a British indie brand, and they do all these palettes inspired by drinks, because the owner apparently likes drinks a lot. This is stunning. I love this color story. Again, haven't played around with it on my face yet, only swatched it so far. Are you guys ready for this one? So this is my Juvia's Place collection. Let's just start with my favorite, which is right here in the middle. This is the Magic palette, and this is the big one. Can we just take a moment to appreciate these stunning shades. This purple and also that blue are a bit dry, so they need to be built up. But once you get there, oh my. Another big one then, the Masquerade palette by Juvia's. I use this a lot less than the Magic palette because this just doesn't inspire me as much. You get neutrals at the bottom, colorful shades at the top. These shimmers, stunning. Then one of their earlier palettes is the Nubian 2. This has some stunning jewel tones. This green is really like the only reason I keep this around. Look at that. Oh. Then the Saharan palette by Juvia's. This palette is warm tones done right, in my opinion. This Sokoto shade. Then the Afrique. This was a palette I didn't really know what to do with when I first got it. This color story is incredibly confusing, especially because of that blue background that it's set in. But I have found that, for instance, these go well together, these go well together. You can do a warm tone look. It works. The Festival was another one that had me confused when I first got it, because boy, what am I gonna do with you? There are mattes, 5 of them, and then 4 shimmers at the bottom. The darkest shade is a shimmer, which totally threw me off. What I have found, however, is that these 2 shades pull a little bit neon on me. And I found out that these 2 work really well as crease shades. This can deepen things up. Perhaps the best shade in that palette, I've swatched this entire palette by now, is this white. But it has this beautiful shine to it. Starting on a favorite again, the Try palette. I did a 3 looks 1 palette with this, and it's browns with greens, but don't be fooled, because these 2 have green in them. Oh, that definitely shows up now. Look at that. Both of them have this green undertone, and of course, let me swatch this too, because you know I'm about that teal life. Same thing goes for the Saharan 2. I love this palette too. Again, you get a couple of really nice pops of blue and green in here. But this shade here, look at that. You're not ready for this. That's a matte. 1 swipe. If you want a fun pop of brights, but you don't want to buy a super large palette like the Slush or something like that, the Zulu is nice and curated with just 9 shades, and it's got a pop of neutral to tie it together. I actually really like this peachy shade, funnily enough. This is not a shade I normally go for, but I thought that was very stunning on the lid. I like this minty green shade again. Like, these shimmers are just stunning. And then my last Juvia's Place palette is the Deuce. This is very pastel, so again, perhaps works best on a more fair-skinned person, I'd say. This shade I love, and I also really like this. It's like a pink, but it has like a purpley blue undertone, and then that's that shimmer right there. I have one BH Cosmetics palette. This is the Royal Affair. I was a bit disappointed in this color story, not in the quality. If I were to keep this palette, I would definitely try and depot some of the shades from here, especially this shade here. I really like this. It's like a limey, greeny gold. It's a very different shade. I have nothing like that in my collection, but most of this palette was just a bit bland. And then quite a new palette to me, this I bought just recently, is the Bad Habit Artistry palette. This is a dupe for the Makeup by Mario and Anastasia palette. This is just neutrals I can get down with. I haven't played around with this yet, still have to put it on my eyes, so I can't really say anything about the quality or how much I like it. These are the most expensive palettes in my entire makeup collection. I'm pretty sure you can agree with me there. This is the Lila palette. I got this one first. This is, of course, Natascha Denona. I'm not feeling this palette. For as purple as the outside looks, you don't get a lot of purple, save for these three in this entire palette. But my favorite shade in the entire palette, which I didn't realize until I started playing around with it, is Dragon Bite, and it's like a red with a green shift. I have nothing like this in my collection. Is it worth how much you pay for this? I don't think so. And yet, I still decided to buy another Natascha Denona palette this summer. This is the gold palette. I haven't put this on my face yet, so I can't give you my full thoughts, but I bought this because of those mustards and those greens, and because all of these shimmers, while in the pan, they all look the same. They are not. They have all these different undertones that really add interest to this palette and that just really make every single look that you do with this a little bit more unique. So there you have three shades, like especially like this looks like a straight up white, but it has like a greenish undertone. Tarte, I have three palettes from now. The In Bloom is another one of my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes. This is one of my favorites. Why? It has cools, neutrals, warms. One row, one look per row, and you're pretty much done. We have the Toasted Eye together with the Naked Heat. Think that between those two, this is the more wearable of the two. This shade, Cracker or Crackle, could have just been like left out of the palette if you were to ask me. So there you have those three. It's stunning. In terms of wearable warms, this is a good one. And then my latest acquisition is the High Tides and Good Vibes eyeshadow palette. This has like liquid in it, so I decided to buy this, especially because of those pressed glitters. I've only swatched it so far. Some people are not liking these glitters because they have difficulty applying them, apparently. I do think that it's going to be necessary to use a glitter glue with these. Press them over a glitter glue in the center of the lid. That's how I would use these. And then we have Huda Beauty. I have 5 of her palettes, 4 of the minis, and only 1 of the larger ones. The Desert Dusk, this is one of my favorite palettes, you guys. Again, I keep saying I don't like warm tones. I really like Retrograde in here. I also like Royal and Turkish Delight. Was it Saffron? I think it was Saffron. It's been a while since I used this because for me, this is very much like a fall palette. But I love pairing like this side of the palette. It just speaks to me, you guys. This is so, so stunning. Then those 4 minis, I have the Amethyst Obsessions. I have the Sapphire Obsessions. I have Emerald Obsessions. And I have Electric Obsessions. Right, so quickly in one shot, all of my single palettes, this is what I currently have. I just did a video with my MAC palette, which is over here. Then another OG palette here is Inglot. When I did a last time with playing with shadows, I reorganized this and put it in this Flexi System palette. Makeup Geek, I did a video about this, I think 2 or 3 years ago, of what's in here and swatching everything. I sort of have warm tones, cool tones, neutrals, and then a few fun pops of color at the bottom. And then in these two palettes, I have my Colourpop singles. In this little thing here, this came free with as a gift with purchase. This has some Nabla and a Sydney Grace overflow from this big guy here. And then Lethal Cosmetics was a brand I wanted to try. I've just been playing around with these. These are so, so, so amazing. This shade here, look at that. Wow. Isn't that pretty? And then last but not least, my final singles palette. This is a mix of, the big ones are Nabla. I have some colored Raine in here, Anastasia, but most of this is Sydney Grace. Ace Beauty, both of these I haven't used yet. They were in recent hauls. This is the Slice of Paradise palette. This is a rainbow palette with a couple of really stunning shimmers in it. And their newest release, at least in Europe, the Oceanic palette. I finally got my hands on it. Another recent acquisition, the Certifeye Tropical Wonders I did already try and play around with earlier this year. This is a stunning rainbow palette. The packaging just gets absolutely grubby, but this is stunning. This is like, if you have this, you don't need any other rainbow palette. And my most recent acquisition, it's finally here, the Certifeye Affinity 2. Really, really stunning. So far, I've only swatched it. Can't wait to put it on my face. And then we have Menagerie Cosmetics. Look at this. Like, isn't this the most unique stuff you've ever seen in your entire life? This is the Feral palette. That green, but especially this. Wolfling. So that's really, really nice, and I already played around with this. And then this at the bottom is the Dragon Child, and that palette is being discontinued. I'm not sure if you can still get it. So far, I've only swatched it, so again, I can't say too much about it. And now you know this video is very hot off the press. The Layla 2 came in just yesterday before I filmed this. Sina 2 I have tried, and the reason why I got the Layla 2 is because I like this one so much. I said I wanted to build my own purple, blue, and green palette. They did it for me. Now let's have a look at the Layla 2. This is all green. It's brighter than I had expected. But I did hear her say that this pairs really well with some of the greens in the Hasina 2. Starting off with Lime Crime, this is the original Venus XL, and this is the larger version of their first Venus palette. And I've described this in the past as modern renaissance on steroids. I've mentioned that I really like the berries in that palette mostly, and this is all berries. I really like this shade here, Botticelli. It's really, really dry, but look at that. Like, that really packs a punch. Like, I really like that. Colored Raine, Queen of Hearts. Sadly, that's just a sleeve. We're not going to mention it anymore. I mainly bought this palette because of this, Royal Highness. That is my favorite shade in the entire palette. When I swatched this in a store, I was like, yup, I need to get that. Speaking of warm tones with a pop of purple, the Violet Voss hashtag palette. I've mentioned not thinking this worth the price point this goes for. Definitely get it on a sale if you can. It's very sort of Huda Beauty Desert Dusk-esque. I don't like gold, so this row was a bit lost on me, but the bottom two rows and also this top one, I mean, it's got 5 mattes and then all of these like purples and oranges. Like it does work as a concept. I just thought that the quality you get and the price you pay for it isn't the best. The only palette here that I've tried is the Meesha Lou Cosmetics Witchcraft palette. This palette is stunning. It's got greens and then it's very grungy, very dark and grungy. And this magic shade, it has such a nice reflect to it, and I believe you can buy that as a single. Another British indie brand is Sample Beauty. I believe this is very new. I found this on Beauty Bay. Thought the color story looked interesting. Again, it's purple, blues, and greens, so I thought I would give it a whirl. Another palette I recently hauled is the LA Splash Classic Horror palette. This palette has the same issue as the Sample Beauty one. This has very chalky texture, but this packaging. Like, can we just like talk about that for a minute? Like, that's what drew me in. It's a rainbow palette. It's nice. This periwinkle shade, you guys. Like, that was what drew me in when I saw that. Like, that's really nice. And then finally, the last one. This is the last eyeshadow palette that I will be showing you in this video. I know it's a long one. The Creepy Cute palette by Strobe Cosmetics. If you don't know what this looks like, this has pastels with a gray and a black. Now the shade that really appeals to me is Planchette, this like really soft lavender shade. Like, this is so nice. And these are actually pastels that, despite the white base, like, they work really well for pastels. Like, they're really nice. So that's my entire eyeshadow palette collection. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a long one. I haven't edited down the video yet when I'm filming this, so I'm very curious to see how long it will be. So if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more by me. I make regular videos about different eyeshadow palettes and how I use them and all that stuff. I don't review a lot on my channel, but I definitely do like to talk about things and like cobble them together in different videos. So you will definitely see a lot of these palettes coming back in future videos. So if you'd like to see more by me, then stick around and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.